Well, we've been talking about Haiti all week and doing our best to raise the multiple converging issues that plague the nation and have since the Western world began punishing it and its beautiful people for defeating slavery and colonialism, becoming the first Black independent nation in the Western Hemisphere. France, England, and the U.S. and their collective business interests were never satisfied with just letting Haiti be. So, in some way, honestly, in every way they could think of, they've been punishing Haiti for daring to fight them and win ever since they did. So now we see once again another attempt at imperialist subjugation imposed upon Haiti with the assassination of Jovenel Moise, an effort that the interests against her and her people hope will crush the spirit of the Haitians rebelling against imperialist rule and intervention. But I don't think that's what they're going to get. Haiti has been at this revolution and rebellion thing a long time. And like we said yesterday, the West knows that the example of Haiti and the current and persistent uprising of the Haitian people is a dangerous vanguard to allow to continue to exist. Haiti is both a rallying point for freedom fighters around the world right now, but the history of Haiti and her people are also the example for how we fight under all insurmountable odds against us. The Haitian people struggle and they struggle to win still, and so must we. And of course, the powers that be don't want any of us to do that. So this is why we must rally around and behind and beside Haiti right now and always. And it's interesting that we talked about the business interests, the financial stake, the issues of debt in relation to Haiti yesterday, as well as the history of the business class and colluding with fascists to influence or overthrow the government in this country, because business, industry, profit, capitalism have always been aspects of the drivers behind settler colonialism and imperialism everywhere in the world it exists. Business interests and capitalism are the main reasons Hawaii was finally annexed to the United States on July 8, 1889, after the Native Hawaiians' long struggle against the settler colonial incursion. In 1893, the last monarch of Hawaii, Queen Liliuokalani, was overthrown by a party of businessmen who then imposed a provisional government. Why did the businessmen overthrow Queen Liliuokalani? Sandalwood and sugar. The planter class invaded Hawaii along with the requisite European American white missionaries in tow and transformed Hawaii's economy, culture, and government. The constitutional monarchy imposed on the people in 1840 stripped Hawaii's original monarchy of much of its power. This government entered into a number of political and economic treaties with the United States, favoring them and its business interests, of course. And in 1887, a U.S. naval base was established at Pearl Harbor as part of a new Hawaiian constitution. Funny how that worked out, huh? Sugar exports to the U.S. also expanded greatly as a result, and U.S. investors and American sugar planters on the islands increase their domination over Hawaiian affairs. But then Liliuokalani, sister of the late King Kalakua, ascended to the throne, and she refused to recognize the former constitution that gave U.S. business and government interests so much influence and restored the authority and autonomy of the Hawaiian monarchy, which of course didn't sit well with the business class. So in January 1893, a Revolutionary Committee of Safety organized by Sanford B. Dole staged a coup against Queen Liliuokalani with the tacit support of the United States. And on February 1st, Minister John Stevens recognized Dole's new government on his own authority and proclaimed Hawaii a U.S. protectorate. Dole submitted a treaty of annexation to the U.S. Senate, but most Democrats at the time actually opposed it, especially after it was revealed that most Hawaiians did not want annexation. They didn't want to go to war. President Grover Cleveland sent a new U.S. minister to Hawaii to restore Queen Liliuokalani to the throne under the 1887 Constitution, but Dole refused to step aside. He had no authority whatsoever, but he just said nope, and instead proclaimed the independent Republic of Hawaii. Cleveland was unwilling to overthrow the government. It wasn't a government, it was just Dole by force. And his successor, President William McKinley, actually negotiated with the coup leader, Dole, a treaty with the Republic of Hawaii in 1897. But Hawaii was still not formally annexed until the Spanish-American War broke out in 1898. And the strategic use of the naval base at Pearl Harbor during that war convinced Congress to go ahead and annex Hawaii against the will of the majority of Native Hawaiians. 2 years later, Hawaii was organized into a formal U.S. territory, and in 1959 entered the United States as the 50th state. And best believe Native Hawaiians are still struggling for their rights and autonomy today. Oh, and if you're wondering if the Sanford Dole who overthrew Queen Liliuokalani is the settler who founded the Dole Pineapple Company, you know, the fruit that is most associated with Hawaii, well, he is actually not. He is the cousin of James Dole, the founder of the Hawaiian Pineapple Company, later known as the Dole Pineapple Company, and owner of Dole Plantation on the island that carried with it all the settler colonial and imperialist violence, oppression, and exploitation of the Native Hawaiian people who worked it as you would imagine. Think about that next time you buy some Dole fruit in your grocery store, because that's how settler colonialism and imperialism works. And that's the status quo of these elements that create capitalist, quote unquote, success for the capitalist class, worker and resource exploitation and oppression of the people rising up against it. Whether it's in Haiti with cheap labor to make Hanes underwear, in Hawaii to build a fruit empire, or in the U.S. where politicians are trying to force working class people to go back to low-wage jobs in the midst of a global pandemic to boost the economy that those people don't benefit from, the status quo of capitalism is and always was and always will be the exploitation of the people. Follow Lukman Nation on patreon.com/LukmanNation for lots of great content.